A food web. A food web, it is a graphical model depicting many food chains which are linked together to show the feeding relationships of an organism in an ecosystem. It differs from food chain in a way that the latter is linear system showing a succession of organisms where the species is eaten in turn by another species. Food web is more complex network of what eats what in a particular ecosystem. There are different types of food webs. One is soil food web, aquatic food web in the forest, food web of grassland, food web in terrestrial and aquatic ecosystem. If you just take an example of food web in a grassland ecosystem with the 5 possible food chains, for example, in a grazing food chain, of grassland, in the absence of rabbit, the grasses may also be eaten by mouse. And this mouse is in turn may be eaten directly by the auk or by the snake first, which then eaten by the hawk. So thus in a nature there are found alternatives which altogether constitute some sort of interlocking pattern which is called as a food web. So in this food web of grassland, you can see there are 5 possible linear food chains which are isolated sequences are. You can see the 5 possible food chains. So the first one, the producers, they are eaten by the herbivore, the grasshopper, and this grasshopper is in turn eaten by the hawk. This is the first type of interlocking system. The second one is the producer. This producer is eaten by the herbivore, the grasshopper. In turn, the grasshopper is eaten by the lizard and the lizard is eaten by the hawk. The second type of food chain. And in case of the third type, here you can see the grasses are eaten by the rabbit, the herbivore, and this in turn rabbit is eaten by the hawk. The third level, the third type of food chain. And again, the fourth type, the grasses, they are eaten by the mouse, and in this mouse is in turn eaten by the auk in the fourth type. And also in the fifth type, the grasses are eaten by the mouse, which is an herbivore which occupies the primary level, the producer, the primary level, the secondary level and the tertiary level. And this grass is eaten by the mouse, and this mouse is eaten by the snakes, and snake is eaten by the hawk. So these are the 5 possibility you can see in the grassland ecosystem which constitute the food web. So all these 5 chains are interlinked with each other at different points, forming the food web. So this is one type of food web you can explain, or you can write in the examination, that is food web in the grassland ecosystem. How in the absence of any organisms it is consumed by the other organisms. And food web in forest. If you just look into the food web in forest, how the producers are eaten by the primary consumer, which is an herbivorous, and in turn eaten by the secondary consumer, which is a carnivorous. Like this you can see the different level. This is eaten by the secondary consumer, and this is eaten by the fox, and fox is in turn eaten by the other tertiary consumers. Like this this you see in case of forest food web, how it is interlinked by forming a different food chain. So the energy flow through the ecosystem as a plant in turn sunlight into the energy they use to grow. The plants are eaten by the animals, and these animals are eaten by the other animals. For example, when the plants and the animals die, they are broken down by the decomposers, and decomposes into organic matter in the soil that releases nutrient back to the fuel the growth of the plants. So we can see the nutrient cycle in desert or in the rainforest and the grassland. But one of the most important food web is one we rarely see is the soil below our feet. So cycling of nutrients in the soil is virtually important through though as terrestrial plants depend on them, in turn they are producers for most food webs on the earth. So this is about the soil food web, and this soil is made up of broken down by rock and mineral matter mixed with the decomposing organic matter and living organisms. This soil food webs, like all food webs, have the producers. These are the green plants, the lichens and photosynthetic bacteria, and the algae that converts the sunlight into energy using photosynthesis. And these plants are only available as the roots and as a part of decomposing organic matter in the soil. And there are also some microorganisms, it may be bacteria, fungi and protozoans, and largely nematodes, segment worms and arthropods that are consumers in the food web. And still larger organisms such as birds, shrews and rodents also play a role as an higher level consumers, and the organisms cycle nutrient through the soil as in any other ecosystem, which forms the food web in the soil ecosystem. So this is the soil food web. Different food chains, they are interlinked together to form a soil food web. The next type of food web is the pond life food web or the aquatic food web. If you just look into the next slide, it will give the diagrammatic sketch showing a food web in the pond. So there are different food chains you can see. So the first you can see the rooted plants, the producers. These producers are directly eaten by the consumers, the game fish. In the second type of chain, the producers, they are eaten by the producers may be the macrophytes, that is rooted plant, or it may be phytoplankton, which is an algae. This is eaten by the small fish, and this small fish is eaten by the game fish. And also the third type of food chain that you see in case of the aquatic food web or the food web in the pond, the rooted plants, the producers are eaten by the insect larvae, the beetle, mites, mollusks, crustaceans, etc. In turn this is eaten by the other insect, and this in turn eaten by the game fish. If the food is not available in the ecosystem, obviously this chain has to go through. And also the phytoplanktons or macrophytes, phytoplanktons are eaten by the small organism in the ecosystem, that is zooplankton, and this zooplankton is in turn eaten by the game fish. And then phytoplanktons, if the availability of zooplankton is not there, or if the availability of the insect or such is not there, the producers, the phytoplanktons, are in turn eaten by the game fish. So this forms an interlocking system. So that is what is called as the food web in the aquatic ecosystem. So these are the important things about the food web and the types of food web. So what are the importance of the food web is, here balanced ecosystem is essential for the survival of all the organism of the system. So the survival of the primary consumer is linked with the secondary consumer, that is the carnivorous, and so on. So each species of an ecosystem is indeed kept under some sort of natural check so that the system may remain balanced. This is the importance of the food web. And next, coming to the next chapter, that is pyramid of energy, etc.